My guest today is a great friend, Sarah Sladen, who sadly hasn't come and had supper with me for nearly a year now, which is extraordinary and very sad. But I thought I would love to chat to her because she has a small farm not far from us, and she does absolutely everything herself, whether it's lambing, looking after the pigs, everything. We have a farm manager and on a slightly different scale, but I thought it'd be so interesting to compare and contrast our lives and the satisfaction and pleasure that living in nature and with animals gives us both. Thank you so much for coming along this morning. Really appreciate it. And I suppose in the spring, well, piglets come all the time, but you're now in lambing. But first of all, actually, Sarah, do you want to describe your farm and what you do?
Our farm is 450 acres, a mixed farm, really. When I took over a few years ago, I turned it into a bit of an arable reversion, really. So we grow herbs on one part of the farm, and then the other part is all down to environmental stewardship, where I run a handful of Dexter's cows, Black Welsh Mountain sheep, and Cooney pigs.
Wow. So we don't yet grow some herbs, but like you, we are a very mixed farm here on a different scale. We've got about just over 2,000 acres which we farm in one way or another, and we also farm Lord Huntingdon's land nearby, which makes more sense of our machinery costs. But like you again, we've always for years now been in every environmental stewardship scheme which the EU promoted. We've got banks of wild flower meadows and beetle banks and stubble plots for stone curlews, and amongst it we grow the crops that we grow, which is perhaps different to you because you're more into animal husbandry and sheep.
Well, yes, I am. I mean, I basically, because when I took over, I knew nothing about crops and all the rest of it. It was being contract farmed at that stage when my uncle was running it. There wasn't really, we had it in the forecast was Brexit and all those things. And no one really knew what was going to happen. So I thought, right, I'm going to stick, and for 5 years, I'm going to do a total arable reversion. Other than the herbs, I'm not going to grow wheat, anything like that. I'm just going to go down to grass on the home farm and manage it for the environment and everything. And see, also we suffered a lot from blackgrass, which is an invasive weed. Yes. And there is no way of getting rid of blackgrass unless you just smother it. So for 5 years, I thought, let's smother it and see what happens. What I've really enjoyed by doing the environmental thing, which you've probably found as well, like you, we're off the North Wessex Downs, part of an area of outstanding natural beauty. So you're very limited in what you can do business-wise.
Yes.
You can't build things. There's a lot you can't do, and the land is not great. It's chalk.
It's not grade one farming land. No.
It's chalk with a clay cap with runoff from the downs. So we suffer a lot with runoff, and a lot of nitrates have run off over the years. So trying to hold those back to stop them going into the aquifers. But what I've really enjoyed about the environmental side is just the amount of bees. I never knew there were so many different variety of bees. When you stand in a field of herbal lays with all these wild clovers and all the rest of it, and chicories and things, and it's just buzzing, it's humming.
It's so noisy.
It's so noisy. And you're going, but you're different to you, and you're different to you, and oh, look at you, you're huge and you're small, and it's amazing. It's wonderful. Sadly, one thing I have found, I mean, we did find that we had a lot of yellowhammers and things like that. All the birds that we wanted to come did originally. But the one sad thing about lockdown has been the amount of people that have been obviously out enjoying the sunshine and all the rest of it. And I've just did a bird count earlier on in the year when we needed to do it. And he said that he's been doing bird counts. I have a man who comes and does it, and he does it around lots of places. He said he's seen a decrease in those birds, those hedgerow birds, which is a great shame. And he thinks it's because of the amount of people that are out, many more people.
Well, there are footpaths running through Highclere, and we try to hold the footpaths to where they are, just because it's us people, it's humans who are diminishing the strength of nature. And you need space for nature. And I try to explain to people that if you let your dog off a lead there, the lapwings that were nesting will not be able to nest. So actually our lapwing population has been increasing, but that's because we do try to hold that, and that's for the reason we've got enough places, I think, to walk and to go as people. And we're better off going up and down where we are than actually trampling nature, the bees, the insects, trampling through bluebell woods, which are not going to recover. So like you, I have that on one side. Funnily enough, Sarah, my next book is about seasons, nature, gardening, cooking, farming, from earliest times to today. And I'm so enjoying it. And it's the diversity of nature as well as the changing seasons that lies at the heart of it. It's looking at the poems from poetry of John Clare to Edward Thomas, to what we've gained and what we've lost, to how it has changed, and to the wealth in an edible hedgerow. So it's just small stories trying to share, what you and I would perceive, which perhaps if you're stuck and desperate to get out and exercise, you might not perceive. But at least if people keep to the footpaths, it does actually help. But now we have, I think it's about, goodness knows, 1,500 ewes to lamb, or we lamb late and you lamb early.
Yes.
But we have help doing that. So Georgie and I do some lambing, but I think you do all the lambing to turn back to lambing.
I do all the lambing, yes.
How many ewes do you have?
Well, I only lamb 25 ewes, pedigree Black Welsh Mountain. So they have to, they are valuable in their pedigree. So I do tend to lamb, not indoors. This year I did lamb indoors totally, and I lambed early in February, purely because I'd roofed a barn and I thought I better use it. But then we had all the problems with frozen pipes and all the rest of it, and no water, so that added a... But I do all the lambing myself. I do it all myself. I top all the fields. I do everything myself. But I'm very lucky in that there are a lot of people around who are much more specialists than me. It's the little lady up the road who cries and goes, "Please, I've got one stuck. Can you come and help me pull it out?"
Really handy, isn't it?
Then I've got the odd person who comes and helps me gather when I'm going to inject and things like that, because they have all the equipment.
Yes.
And it's much easier to get them in and do it with them.
Oh, God, so, yes.
But I mean, as far as if I'm moving a whole load of sheep from one field to another, then I walk them, probably half a mile from one place to another.
And a dog? You don't have sheep?
No, I have my lovely collie, who actually is in the car now, but she's of an age and she was never trained.
Right.
So, no, bucket.
Ah.
So they are... and the Black Welsh Mountain sheep aren't particularly keen on dogs. Right. They will literally, if they don't want to go, they'll turn round on a dog and they'll just stamp their feet and go, "No, I'm not going to go." Yeah. So, no, the bucket is they're a bit Labrador-like, Shake that bucket and they come. So
I've watched, the other thing that I've watched on your Instagram is your Cooney pigs. So what got you into Cooney pigs, Sarah?
That is extraordinary, because we were at a school charity evening, and one of the prizes, or one of the auction things, was piglets, Cooney piglets. And a girlfriend said, "I really want to do that." And I went, "Well, no, you can't. And you have no land, you have nothing." And she said, "Well, come on, we could do it if you had one and I had one." So, of course, we end up doing that, don't we? So,
but you kept both the piglets.
But well, then we actually put them in a little bit of her garden to start with, and then they came to me, and then I got much more into it and started breeding them. And I'm on the society, and I run the show side of it, and I'm the regional rep for this area. And yes, I've got myself too involved, probably.
So how many pigs do you have?
It all fluctuates as to whether it's Christmas or not and we're eating them. Or summer and we're barbecuing them. I can have 20 at one time. That's probably the maximum I've had.
Do you have a boar as well?
I have 2 or 3 boars that I hire out as well.
Yes.
And with my rams, I have about 20 rams. I hire out about 10 rams, because I'm a big hiring out thing as well.
Rent a ram.
Rent a ram, rent a boy. So yes, I have boars and castrates and then a few gilts and sows. So it really depends.
Yes. And have you got those pig huts like we do as well?
Arks.
Arks, they're called arks.
Arks, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Must get in the lingo,
Get
darling.
the lingo.
I know, well, I can't really believe it, because I was leaning over a gate with Simon Andrews, our farm manager, to a funny bit of land which actually was full of brambles and detritus, and the lambs kept getting stuck in there. So I said, we've got to clear this, because we'd find them in the wrong place, and then we'd find them too late, or we'd have to go in there and pick it. It was quite a struggle. So we looked, and I said, what about pigs? So we then rushed away from that fence, that gate, and did some research. And he was, of course, much faster off the mark than I, and luckily had kept pigs and knew all about it already, which is how we ended up with Thelma and Louise, our British lops, which are quite big.
They're big.
And they are friendly. They are amazing. And I love, I always start chatting to them some way away, so that they know my voice. And it's been the most extraordinary journey. And we used to rent Ernie the boar from Travasca's farm, because he'd really saved the breed, that Giles Eustace family. And then after a while he said, I'm not driving up and down from Cornwall anymore, you're going to have your own boar, which is how we acquired Arthur. But we now rent out to King Arthur of Tintagel, Arthur as he's known, like you do. And he has some girlfriends over by Malmesbury, which he loves, because they're a dairy herd, so he gets really well fed while he's over there and thoroughly enjoys that. And he has quite a life. But it's been absolutely amazing. And we have now undoubtedly extended what was a hugely endangered breed with 100 breeding cells left in the world to two more. I mean, it's a small contribution on our part, but because of Downton Abbey, I think that helps. People think they will also take some of them on, and they're friendly, easy to look after, and they just love a scratch, really.
Well, the Rare Breed Society is a very important, which the British Lop is, and you're probably members of the Rare Breed Society.
Yes.
And I'm very pro that, and we do quite a lot, because I do quite a lot of showing the animals, and I show my sheep and my pigs. And we do quite a few rare breed shows that we organise literally for rare breeds. And
Simon suggested I join you on that circuit with my big paws, but I don't know.
Yes, no, we can get
I think you'd be rather good. I'd be the one who was in the wrong direction.
But no, funnily enough, you're contained in a room, in a pen, big pen, and everybody's really, really helpful.
I thought it'd be quite fun, actually.
No, you must come if Newbury ever happens again.
Oh, I'd love to. If it happens, I would love to come. It's the Royal Berkshire Newbury Showground, and it was part of the annual cycle of the year in September. And it's so sad that it hasn't been able to take place, and is not this year either.
No, and sadly Newbury has got a problem. I mean, we hope that it will come back one day, but it won't come back like it was before. It will come back probably just as a livestock show, which is how it started. My grandfather, we used to have it on used to move round, and we had it quite a few years on our ground at Kingsclere before we sold that off, and before it had its permanent home at Newbury. But it's been running out of money, as has a lot of these big shows, because they've just gone more and more into shops, really, and not agricultural shows.
Yes.
But we hope that it will come back.
Yes, so do I, and I do anything I could to help them come back, because I think it's a really important link for those who aren't lucky enough to get up in the middle of the night and lamb and live in a town.
Well, it's education.
Is.
I mean, I do a few shows in London with the city farms there, and the city farms are the most incredible organisations. There are lots of them all around London and in other cities, but Mudchute City Farm, Vauxhall City Farm, all these different farms that they're all run by volunteers on the whole, and people with learning disabilities and adults with behavioural problems and things like that come and they help with the animals, and it really helps them so much. As much as them learning about agriculture, it helps it just helps. They're
It
different
does.
people when they're with animals.
It is. It's completely amazing. And I know that Michael Morpurgo is behind some of the city farms because I was hoping last year he might come and talk at our history festival last year, but it wasn't possible, and we could raise a bit of money for the city farms, funnily enough. So I'd like to revert and see if we couldn't try and do that in
Yes,
the
well, that's what
coming
I've
year.
done. During lockdown, when we had all these challenges and things, I did money for city farms because, of course, they had no footfall. No one was coming. So
it helps you mentally, I think.
Yeah.
And I know that for me, I was realising the other day when I was checking the horses last thing at night, and that sense of stroking an animal's neck and burying your face in it is just so special. When you can't hug or give a girlfriend a hug or say how lovely to see you, you can at least say how lovely to see you to a horse. And they do talk back, actually. So that's
well, as you said about you talking to the pigs, my husband feeds one lot of the pigs every day, and he says, I go and talk to the pigs. I go, tell them my woes.
It's really good, isn't it? But and they sort of snicker and snort back at you, and
Especially if you've got a bucket of food.
Yes, you need to give them the food first. And the other thing is that I think as my voice, I've never done anything. I've never given them any injections or things like that, whereas Simon has.
Oh, I do.
Our farm manager. So they're slightly more aware of his voice than my voice. So there's love to me and concern sometimes in case he's going to give them an injection, which is quite funny. There was one evening when Edith was about to give birth, Lady Edith. We've obviously got Lady Mary, Lady Edith, Lady Violet and Lady Cora. Anyway, this was Lady Edith, who was quite recalcitrant, and it was miserable weather, and we managed to get her into an ark one evening, and then she didn't give birth. And the next evening, I mean, after an hour of chasing this pig around the bloody field, we just gave up. She wasn't having any of it. She knew what we'd done from before, tempting her with food. And of course, she then gave birth out in the mud, and everyone was fine, actually.
They know where they want to give birth. Yeah.
They do.
It's like a dog. They need to sort of almost go in a few days or a week before and make their nest as to where they're going to go.
Well, they do, because it's funny. I think if we'd left some straw outside in order to put in there, and when I come back one day, they'd actually put the straw in themselves. They're perfectly capable of doing an awful lot. But I never get over how you can have these enormous pigs, Thelma and Louise, share the same ark. They've got 2 arks. They're all in there together with all their piglets. And I don't know, yours probably do as well. They operate this creche system where all the piglets feed off one mum and the other goes and has a break. And then they sort of swap over. And that's what Thelma and Louise have done, which is
it's brilliant. It's wonderful.
Amazing.
I mean, animals are amazing as to.
They are amazing.
Nature is amazing.
So you've got pigs, lambs, and sheep, and then you've also got herbal lays you're referring to. So
yes, those are the arable reversions. So that's again when one starts doing these environmental schemes, one never knew that there were so many different grasses.
Yes.
So the herbal lays are usually sort of more broadleaf. So they've got clovers and chicories, and as well as all your timothys and all your different grasses. They have, obviously, as you know, with environment, it's all about the soil and the depth of the root. So each plant has a different root depth, so as to go down and get the nutrients and help with the worms and everything like that. So, and there are lots and lots of different herbal lays, and you make up your own mixture yourself. But pigs love it. It's cut for, in the summer, cattle mainly. It gets chopped up, and not for my cattle, but I sell it. Got to get as much money as one can off these fields. Yeah. Yes, but it's fascinating, and we've just had a soil sampling done on the farm to see how the 5 years of environmental schemes has helped, and it's been very interesting as to which fields have benefited, which haven't.
How interesting, Sarah, because we've also grown sainfoin and other herbal lays here. We also grow crops, because I think one concern that I have is the fact that we need to grow crops for food, for the wheat, the oats, the barley. We will eat them. And if we don't grow crops here, we're then importing crops from far distant places, which then has a knock-on climactic effect. So I think it's the mixture of what we do that's important. And I don't, but I've been looking back at the agricultural records here, and I found some from the 13th century. And where we're growing oats up on the high downland, they've grown oats then. It's the most amazing things. But again, with care, I find it extraordinary. It's finding what grows where. And I think the long rotations are key. The hedgerows, the edible hedgerows, which I'm really into. And we have some woodland which in some ways resembles some of the ancient woodland in terms of all the accumulated moss and all the different, fungi and everything else which grows over all the old woodland tree stumps. So it's leaving those in situ. And I had gathered that in this country, the amount of our ancient woodland has halved since World War II, which is actually a more worrying rate than the loss of the Amazon rainforest, which is extraordinary. So, and what it is extraordinary is, obviously with conservation, you cannot replenish the ancient woodland. Once it's gone, it's gone.
No, you can't replenish it, but you can. I've just actually done. We are probably 70% ash on our farm, so. With ash dieback, I've had to cut down an awful lot of it. But in one wood, I have I hated it, almost decimated it. But we've discovered that it is an ancient woodland. We've discovered some orchids growing, all sorts of things.
Yes.
By clearing it, we've actually let the light in.
Yes.
And it's actually allowing a lot of things to regenerate. We've found some natural ponds in there which we're going to dig out and actually enhance. And we're going to replant with some in areas that are really bare with natural, native trees. But yes, you can't get back ancient woodland that's gone, but you can probably enhance and find ones that probably have disappeared, had sort of not been looked after.
I completely agree. I think it's planting the right tree in the right place.
Exactly.
And Geordie was saying that he wanted to plant in some of the wild pears and apple trees.
I've done, yes.
Amongst
exactly.
The replanting that we are doing. And funnily enough, I don't know, but in the Wood of Goodwill, which Geordie and I created, I found there were only sort of 30 native British trees. So I have replanted them all in that wood.
Oh, wonderful.
And labelled them. So when children come around, they can find them.
Yeah.
I need to do some more leaflets. I'm always behind on everything. But I thought that was very interesting. So amongst the exotics and, the English botanists who brought back the most extraordinary range and exotic specimens of trees from abroad, which are also important because they love our temperate climate. It's just, again, hanging on to those. And, the black poplar, which was everywhere, proliferated everywhere, is now quite rare. So it was really interesting to replant that, and it's growing well. So it's been a really interesting, and like you, as we've taken out some of redwoods which perhaps weren't best planted there, we've now got bee orchids and a whole range of wildflowers back again, and that diversity which perhaps a poet like John Clare might recognise.
Exactly. But you were talking about the crops and all the rest of it. I think when I said I grow herbs, in fact, the herbs that I grow parsley, sage, those sorts. So I am growing edible crops.
That's what I was thinking too. Yes.
So although the herbal lays are grasslands, one side of the farm, we have two separate sort of farms, is all down to herbs. So we grow with a local contractor. We grow sage, chamomile, German chamomile, parsley. We're just about to grow parsley. So we are growing.
Do you grow mint as well?
No, we don't put mint actually, because that doesn't grow on our land. It doesn't like our soil. So the German chamomile has gone wonderful, and the sage is fantastic. And the brand of sage that he grows, or we grow, they've discovered has an Alzheimer benefit. So and there's only about 3 people growing it in the country. So,
fantastic!
Which is fantastic.
Well, what I don't know whether you know, but there was a Roman saying, which is a man who grows sage can never grow old, or woman. So that's probably why. So excellent. So you're set for life then, aren't you? I'm sure there's something I can find out about the other herbs as well. So I do grow lots of sage, and I pan fry it like the Italians do as a little hors d'oeuvre. Have you ever had that?
No.
Oh my God, when you next come to supper, it's a little canapé where just pan fried sage, and honestly, I just sort of stand by that particular plate of canapes and don't move.
Don't move. Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
But Sarah, I think I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming round today. I've learned a huge amount from what you do, and I know you get up very early, you'll stay in the middle of the night doing your lambing. And
yes.
So you look very well on it. So it has been a joy as ever. Can I just lastly say, did I remember, are you related to Emma Kitchener-Fellows?
Yes, both my husband and I are cousins of hers.
Of Emma Kitchener-Fellows,
Yep.
married to Julian Fellows, the creator of Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
So whenever they come and stay, I do try and ask you both round, which is such a joy. And I thank you so, so much, Sarah, for coming round today.
Not at all. Wonderful.
Just to remind you, please do subscribe to this podcast. Then you can have it every time it comes out.